Our guest today is an adjunct professor at several universities, Cairn, of course, being one of those, and he has many years of experience teaching on the sociological perspective of hip-hop. He's also an artist, writer, and two-time Grammy-nominated artist himself. His stage name is Phanatik, and we will talk with him today about his background in life and hip-hop, his role in the cross movement, hip-hop history, the class he teaches here at Cairn, and probably a few more things, too. Stay tuned till the end of the podcast, as we will talk about how you can win a free copy of one of his albums and how you can influence the direction that this discussion may go in the future. You're listening to the Cairn TED podcast, where we bring our alumni back inside Cairn University. Brady Goodwin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Can you share a bit to start off, Brady, about your background in life and hip-hop and all those things?
Okay. I could quote a popular TV show and say, Philadelphia, born and raised, on the playground, ... But yeah, not West Philly, but Philadelphia. Grew up in the city, public school educated, single-parent home after the age of 10. Grew up in the church, and I grew up in the streets of Philadelphia. So every weekend I was in church, and then Monday through Friday I was running the streets. Around age 10, I came to a fork in the road where I couldn't do the streets and my faith. I realized I wasn't two people. I had to choose one of those, and chose my faith at age 16. Thought I had to leave my culture alone, and so for about a year or so I did. No rap, no R&B, no nothing. And then I ran into a guy who had actually merged his faith and culture and was doing Christian rap. And when I saw it, just seemed like the most obvious, like, why didn't I think of that? Why'd I throw my culture away? And, by God's grace, merged faith and culture and been doing it ever since.
That's great.
Yeah.
You mind moving that water bottle, by the way,
Sure.
over down there, just so that they can see you, not the...
Cool.
We got a little Deer Park
Got you.
tribute there, right? Deer Park promo.
Yeah.
Help yourself with
Got you.
whatever you need. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure people can see you. So you're talking about early on, and I've had the privilege of interviewing Manny Lambert, a.k.a. The Truth,
Yeah.
another one of our alumni, and I've talked with some others who have been connected with cross movement,
Yeah.
and you are a big part of that. So for anybody who's unfamiliar with cross movement, can you talk about that a little bit? And if you think of it, any intersection with Cairn over the years,
Yeah.
where it plays a role in that? It's a big question.
Yeah, by way of analogy, there's a lot going on right now as people are mourning the death of Kobe Bryant. And one of the things that people are saying is, for very many people, he is if you're in your 20s, late 20s maybe, Kobe Bryant was the Michael Jordan of that generation. Michael Jordan was the Michael Jordan of the generation before them. In today's world of rap and Christianity connecting, most people will look and say Lecrae, that's the guy. But he's this generation's, Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Before him, there was the cross movement. It was a group of guys who came out of Philadelphia and Jersey, and all of us thought that we were the only ones doing Christian rap. And God ran us into each other, like, you too? And we're lonely. We were all lonely because we didn't fit in the church, because the church rejected hip-hop, its aesthetic, the language, the lingo, the fashion, the art. And so we didn't fit in there, but then we would go out to the street and we didn't fit in there because we, had these Bibles on us and like, yo, you can't bring that out here. So we ended up coming together for just fellowship, community. And at that time, it was very interesting because hip hop was in the early 90s, mid 90s, hip hop was very theological. And I'm talking secular hip hop was very theological. You had people like KRS-One teaching all kind of metaphysical ideas. Then you had groups like Wu-Tang Clan declaring things like the black man is God, a spinoff of Nation of Islam. They were 5%ers, these urban cult religions. And they were dissing Christians and Christianity. Rappers like Nas had lines like, I'd resurrect the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus and crucify him again. This is popular in the culture. And so when we came together, we sort of stuck a flag in the ground, kind of like, not on our watch. We're going to defend our faith. We're going to defend the body of Christ. We're going to defend. And so many people who heard cross movement back in the mid 90s, late 90s, thought we were talking to the church because it was so theological. We were really answering these urban cults, and because they were they knew Hebrew, they were talking theological things, and so by God's grace, God used that to catapult us to the forefront of. We didn't invent Christian rap; there was Christian rap before us, but it wasn't theological because for many reasons it wasn't addressing that part of the culture, but we were. And God used that to strengthen the church. God used that to challenge, the secular world. And we sort of began an East Coast movement of Christians in hip hop, representing their faith and not being afraid, not being ashamed of that. So, did I answer the question?
Yeah, and I think you did. Yeah. And so did Philadelphia, the city, and then to some degree by extension, Cairn, was Philadelphia sort of one of the places where you all came together? Did that city play a role in that?
Yeah, Philadelphia, for lack of a better analogy, was sort of a mecca of Christian hip hop at that time because cross movement was from here.
Right.
And cross movement was 7 individuals. A couple of different rap groups of 2 people here, 3 people here, but then all the rap groups broke up. Yeah. And then you had 7 individuals who, even though they weren't groups anymore, they were still in the same conglomerate.
Right.
And we would go to a block party, or we would be at the supermarket, or we'd be on the train, or we'd be down at the clothespin in Center City, Philadelphia, defending our faith. Yeah. And people just would say, hey, we keep seeing y'all together. Like, who are y'all? What are y'all? Are y'all a group? No, we're not a group. We're just soloists and this, that, and the third. And so we put out a compilation album of all these individuals in 1997 called Heaven's Mentality. And then we started traveling, touring the compilation album. And after about maybe a year or two, this was 97.
97?
Yeah, 1997.
Wow.
After about a year or two of that, people just, they kept saying, the cross movement is a group. No, we're a conglomerate. We're a compilation. We're this. And we said, let's stop kidding ourselves. We're a group. And so we kind of but Philadelphia is where that all happened.
Right.
Then you had younger guys like The Truth, Cruz Cordero, people like that who had come.
William Branch, right?
William Branch, Ambassador, who had went to Cairn. All these guys that had been to Cairn for, I think several of them graduated. Some just came for a time, but had relations with Cairn. Right. I never came as a student, but just being in the area and wanting to know more about our faith had people trying to figure out, well, man, if my church isn't giving me enough, if Bible study and this is not giving me enough, how can I get more? And so you had guys from the group just enrolling and just trying to find out how can I get more, because I'm going to take this and do something with it. This is not just an intellectual exercise. I want to get armed for these battles I keep having out here with these urban cults. Yeah. And so that's basically what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Were you at the thing at Moody Bible Institute when Cross Movement was honored?
Yes.
A little while ago?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really interesting to see.
Yeah. I think that was about maybe 10 years after we had disbanded as a group.
Right.
And they kind of gave us a legacy award.
Yeah.
Yeah, the legacy conference.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to say, at KRS-One, my hook with that is, I don't know if you remember when Michael Stipe from REM and he did a song together on the Out of Time album.
Oh, wow.
Radio song. So that, maybe an early example of the beginning of integration of styles and that kind of thing.
Okay.
I recognize Wu-Tang Clan, of course. But so that's great history. So speaking of maybe some of these kind of early intersections, you and I really enjoyed our conversation a month or so back. Yeah. We started talking about some of these things. What do you find most interesting, because you teach a lot on this, and this is maybe part of your specialty, the intersection of hip-hop and sociology, anthropology. I know that's a really broad
all those ologies
sphere. But how do you kind of start to think through that, and what maybe fascinates you the most to kind of let people get inside of the mind of Brady Goodwin a little bit?
Well, I think anytime you begin to look at a particular people group and you are kind enough to acknowledge that this is a culture and not just an aberration or a fad, as many people thought hip hop was going to be a fad. Disco was a fad in the late 60s, early 70s. Hip hop comes on the scene, it'll be a fad, right? It's funny because I teach this and I have students think about the idea of a fad. Many of them don't use that term, fad, anymore.
It's kind of like an 80s term.
Right. Yeah. Let's just put an E at the end of the word fad. What does it spell? Fade. Okay, a fad is something that fades. Most people thought it was going to fade. Now here we are, 47 years later, and hip hop is still there. I ask most students, do you think hip hop will still be around when your children are your age? Most of them will say, yeah. It'll sound a little different, but it'll still be hip hop.
Yeah.
So within that, there's the acknowledgement that hip hop is not going anywhere. And that's because it's not just a style of music. Rap is the style of music of hip hop, the culture. By way of analogy, you can look at, African American culture.
Right.
Soul food is not African American culture. It is the food of that culture. Well, rap is the art form of the culture, hip hop. The church has struggled, the Western church, I would say, has struggled to acknowledge cultures, validate cultures, and then allow cultures to exist. John Piper has one of my favorite lines. I quote him all the time. John Piper says, the church, the Western church, when they would go overseas as missionaries, they would often plant the flower pot instead of the flower. So the gospel is the flower.
Right.
Let me plant this in your culture and see how it grows. No. Take it the way we bring it to you. Take our flower pot. Let me put this in your culture. And when you do that, you destroy what the culture is. Don't build your buildings like this. Build it with a steeple that points to the heaven. Don't name your children this way. Don't sing your songs, without appreciating the culture, and have gone even further than that to demonize the cultures. They call people savages, things like that. So you can imagine the church looking at hip hop in its birth,
Right.
and almost doing the same thing, not recognizing it as a culture, as a valid people group that have a way of life, and simply looking to either demonize it or in some kind of way minimize it, come out of that and become a Christian, as opposed to, let me give you the gospel and see how that blossoms in that culture.
Which is kind of what you said you were kind of wrestling with, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And because no one told me that
Right.
One, no one told me that my culture could be redeemed. Two, many Christians don't realize that the churches that we're a part of have cultures in and of themselves.
Yeah, right.
So the way that we speak and, the terms that we use and the way that we dress, it's a culture. And so sometimes you think you're taking off your sinful culture and putting on Christianity, when really you're just taking off your culture and putting on another culture that is not inherently evil or good. And anyhow, all that to say, if you're kind enough to acknowledge hip hop as culture, you treat it differently. You don't demonize it. You don't minimize it. You look to see how you could see members of the culture redeemed, and then how that could spread to redeem the entire culture. And I think I've been part of that counterculture within hip hop that wants to see the culture redeemed. And so it is sociology. It is anthropology. I see hip hop as an extension of African American history. So if you teach, Dave Chappelle has the comedian Dave Chappelle has a funny joke, and there are no curse words, so don't worry about what I'm about to say. He was at
I'm not worried. Go ahead.
He was at a stand-up event, and people are sitting down. It's a really intimate setting, so people have drinks, and he's very close to the crowd. He's not on a big stage, but he's telling jokes as he's sitting on a stool. And the mood sort of shifts because as he's telling jokes, he goes into this part of his routine where the crowd realizes, wait, you're not joking right now. So they kind of laugh at first, but then they realize, wait, you're kind of serious. Now he gets to a joke, but for a good, minute and a half, he's serious.
Yeah.
And what he's saying is, he starts off saying that, I'm a black man and don't ever forget how I got here. And he traces the history of Africans being enslaved and brought to this country. Then he talks about slavery. Then he talks about the Civil War. He talks about Reconstruction. He talks about the Jim Crow South and the black codes and the Civil Rights Movement. This detailed history. I mean, he goes almost decade by decade. Gets up to Dr. King being assassinated. Very detailed history, and the crowd is sort of just like, man, enwrapped in what he's saying. And then after King, he goes something, 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 Barack Obama. And then the crowd laughs because they realize, wait, you were setting us up.
Right.
You did this detailed, rich history, and then you went from King to Obama, and the only thing in there was something, something, something.
Yeah.
Well, what is that something, something, something? It's 40 years between King and Obama. Hip hop fits in that 40 years. And I think
Is he saying that or are you saying that?
I'm saying this, but I think
Yeah.
the joke and the crowd sort of, when you think about
Yeah.
Black history,
Yeah.
what do you put in between King
Right.
and Obama?
Yes.
Most people don't know what to put there. And so it's just a something, something, something.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of sports and a lot of entertainment, but you don't know how to connect that to this rich history that's
Right.
been being told. And so what I love doing is I love demonstrating how hip hop is the perfect way to fill in that something, something, something.
Right.
You know, before you
Yeah.
get to Barack Obama.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So another question related to this, we had talked about this before. Talking about would hip hop be a fad that would fade? And it seems to me that hip hop has not only not faded, it has really become a dominant, broad cultural force. I mean, not detracting from its original
Yeah.
cultural heritage and roots, but to the point where you see all kinds of areas of the United States that you would not normally associate with teenagers with AirPods in their ears listening
Yeah.
to hip hop and rap music, but they are, and I can say from personal experience, a lot of the kids that I know, it is the
Yeah.
music that they are listening to.
Yeah.
So what do you make of that, of that culture as you've
Right.
established that,
Yeah.
now making really interesting transfer and
Yeah.
inroads into cultures that are maybe dramatically different
Yeah.
from the performers?
I just saw an article that talked about the way hip hop is influencing the new generation of country music.
Yeah.
And it's not just artists like Lil Nas X. They weren't even they didn't even mention him. It's always in my mind. I try to separate between rap and hip hop. Rap being the art form, hip hop being the culture.
Okay. Yeah.
What is it that's spreading into all these areas? I've been, people ask me to come, and I've gone to places like Australia, where native Australians, Aboriginal young folk have embraced hip hop.
Yeah.
And they said, would you come talk to them about the possibility of embracing hip hop for its constructive elements and not just the destructive side? Because most of these people who are embracing it are embracing things like gangster rap.
Okay.
So I'll go and I talk to them.
Yeah.
You can embrace gangster rap. You can embrace conscious rap. You can embrace all Christian rap. It's not the same as embracing hip hop, the culture. And I think, to be honest, many people, even within hip hop, do a poor job of understanding this is culture.
Yeah.
If you take it as just music, you won't really hold it up to the grid you would hold it up to if someone said, sorry if some of these analogies miss. Hopefully they hit. There's a documentary on food. We got all these food documentaries, and there's one on sugar, the sugar industry.
Right. Right.
And as the documentary goes through, the narrator says, or not the narrator, somebody who's being interviewed says, if a foreign nation were to attempt to do to our food source what we're doing to it ourselves in terms of the amount of sugar we're putting in our food, we would look at it as a terrorist attack if we knew the damage it would cause. But because of capitalism, we're allowing ourselves to be impacted this way. In the same way, I think hip hop as a culture, when you don't realize its culture and how culture works, and look at the values of a culture and the need for values in a culture, you accept things not realizing that this is destructive to a people. This is not just, oh, I like the beat, or, oh, did you hear what she said that was funny? A people are imbibing this and living this out. And so, yeah, I think I see rap going everywhere.
Yeah.
But there are very few people who stop and say, wait, what about the culture? What about the
Culture.
people?
Right.
Do I embrace the culture's leaders?
Yeah.
Do I embrace the culture's ethics? This will probably get to a question we'll talk about soon. Parents,
Yep.
if you allow your children to listen to rap music,
Yeah.
how do you separate your values, the values you're trying to give your children, to the values that are being picked up in the music? And I think there's an ethic in hip hop that I understand. I teach a class, I developed a course called Hip Hop and Ethics. And most people, when they hear the term, they say, does hip hop even have ethics? Is that an oxymoron? And I say, no, it actually does.
Yeah.
there's an ethical.
Just about everything does have ethics,
Yeah,
right? They may
right.
not be the kind of ethics we
Right.
want or dislike, but
or if you don't understand
everything
what
has
ethics is, you won't realize how they're at play.
Yeah.
But there is an ethic in hip hop, sort of this underdog mentality, that says because I've been done so wrong, I have a right now to be wrong myself. And there's something there that's worth paying attention to.
Yeah.
Most people would jump on, you don't have a right to be that wrong. You're talking about selling drugs. You're talking about hurting people. You're talking about, you don't have a right to be that wrong. And that may be true. But what was the first part of that ethic? Because I've been done so wrong, I now feel as though I have a right to be wrong. But if you don't address hey, you kind of have been done wrong, then you almost, nullify the entire statement.
Yeah.
And so, I think the sociology in hip hop is rich. I use it as a case study for people who say, I don't even like rap. I don't even know, how it began. I don't really. I said, look, it's a case study. We can dissect. We can put hip hop on a table and dissect it like we're in a lab.
Yeah.
And you'd be able to take the principles and apply it to any other culture because it is one of the best case studies I think in human history.
Yeah. Have you written a book on this?
I have.
Yeah.
The Death of Hip Hop, Marriage and Morals.
Okay.
And then another book called Navigating the N-Word.
Okay.
I would almost want you, if you're going to do a giveaway, to give away a book instead of the music.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I said at the beginning, but we want to give something away.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
book for sure.
Yep.
But yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay. Are those available on Amazon?
They are.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if you're listening to this and you're interested, stay tuned to the end. We'll tell you how you can possibly be entered to win that.
Yeah.
So we'll move to book. That's great. So the issue of parents and teenagers, and I was talking about a little bit of this personally even with you before. So how do you counsel parents around, and let's talk specifically rap music, and I appreciate the distinction. That's really helpful as you talk about hip-hop culture versus rap music. Answers a lot of questions. Yeah. But how do you counsel parents on that issue?
Yeah. I would hope that as Christians we would be great anthropologists, great sociologists. I think we also have a leg up on the field of psychology. Psychology is really the study of the soul. It's been reduced to the mind, but the word psyche is soul. We have some insight from Scripture on these things. So one, I would hope that parents would not just look at it as music or art, but this is when you think about rap, I talk about this idea of the underdog. America loves an underdog. When we watch sports, we don't like a team that just get blown away. We like the struggle, and we like the team that was favored to win. We don't want them just to win easily. Right. We want to see, and if the underdog comes back, what a great story. I think people have tuned into hip hop for so long because the underdogs in America, lower class, marginalized, minorities, are they going to win? Are they ever going to get back in the race? Are they going to? And so for a long time, rappers talked primarily about either partying in spite of the struggle or struggling, and that was a lot of hip hop. Around the mid '90s, though, hip hop began to take on a very successful feel. Commercial, successful. Even
less about struggle.
Much less about struggle. It's about victory, triumph, popping bottles of champagne.
Right.
Which psychologically does something for a people group. Even if vicariously, even if 1 in 10,000 have made it to that financial level, vicariously, we live through that one. One of us can be like that. We can succeed. We can pop bottles. We can drive those cars. We can live in those neighborhoods, and we can get out of these neighborhoods that we've been, locked in. And so the music took on this air of victory, triumph. Now there's something going on that you have to, think about. What about all the people still struggling? How do they relate? Is it just fuel for them to get there too? Or do they just vicariously live through others and stop trying? There's something to talk about there. But nonetheless, I think as a parent, I would want to help my child understand, there are people struggling.
Yeah.
There are real people that are really hurting and that have been oppressed. There are people that there's institutional racism in America. There are all these realities. There are things that are worth celebrating. You know, one of my, I don't know what to call it, sort of a pet peeve right now, Cardi B, you know, the artist Cardi B. She's actually one of my answers to one of the future questions.
See, that's what I wanted to get to, Brady. I want your pet peeves.
Yeah.
That's what...
But her story of a woman who has beat the odds and succeeded is very, very captivating. As much as I don't necessarily like Cardi B as an artist, I cannot deny that her story is one that makes one say, congratulations. You shouldn't be where you are. You made it. Now, I don't like how you made it.
Right.
You know, I have issues with a lot of things. But man, they have gone through that and be okay and you know, be where you are. Yeah. There's something about that makes people say, man, there's I forget where I heard this at. Someone was talking about why people watch the news. And they said people watch the news for 3 reasons. One, they want to know what the human being can survive. That happened to so-and-so. Did they make it?
Yeah.
Will they recover? They just want to know. 2, they want to feel safe because it happened to someone else and didn't happen to them. Oh, that happened across town. I'm okay. And then 3, they watch because they want to feel empathetic. Right. They want to feel that they care. Now, there may be more reasons, but those 3 stand out. Yeah. But I think part of hip hop's appeal is, you know, those 3 things. It's like the news. The rapper Chuck D from Public Enemy said, hip hop is like the CNN of the hood. And so it's like, maybe he said the black community, I'm not sure. That's not the same. Hood and black community are not the same things. There are black communities that are not, quote unquote, the hood. Maybe he said of black America. So I got to get that quote right. Yeah. But nonetheless, that idea of why people watch the news, I think, is why people tune into hip hop. And I think if you're going to parent / shepherd your child through listening, I would challenge them to not just enjoy, but understand.
Critique, even?
Critique,
you know?
yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
you can critique without being, hypocritical. Right. But you can definitely critique.
Yeah. Just in other words, being critical in the way that we want everybody to be critical.
Exactly.
Thoughtful, analytical.
Have a grid.
Not just accepting, but have a grid. A biblical worldview to bring things through.
Now, if you only do that with your child when it comes to rap,
right,
then it becomes hypocritical.
Oh, yeah.
You know, one of the biggest responses of rappers today, and this has been, first time I heard this was back in the 90s. The rapper Ice-T said it back in the 90s. He said, rap is just entertainment, like the Terminator movies of Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the 80s and 90s. Yeah. He said, if you're going to criticize rap for being violent or misogynistic, whatever, criticize the movie industry too. Right. We could debate that. Are they the same? Are they different? You know, if Arnold Schwarzenegger, take it to today, Vin Diesel or The Rock, they play, you know, a violent action hero. Yeah. When the credits roll, you don't expect them to still be violent. Right. You don't, you know. Dr. Doolittle with Robert Downey Jr. He's not Iron Man anymore. Yeah. He's Dr. Doolittle talking to animals now. Right. But in rap albums, you don't look at the rapper and say, I wonder who he's going to be on his next album. Yeah. You expect him to be that same person. So I think there is some difference between Hollywood and hip hop. Sure. But all that to say, I think if you're going to be critical of hip hop, be critical of everything else. Yeah. And without being hypocritical, I think if your children see you saying, remember the grid I taught you when we were watching This Is Us? Yes, right. Or when we were watching Modern Family? Let's use that same grid for rap. Yeah. As opposed to only having it for rap. Yeah.
Well, so one other thing about that, especially depending on when if you grew up in the evangelical church, which is can be a culture unto its own. Yep. There was a period where, and I've talked with some other people on this podcast about this, where it was more of a kind of, these are the things we will avoid. They contain bad words and bad images and that kind of thing. So, and I remember, I think it was Francis Schaeffer's, there was kind of a good art versus bad art and, messaging and kind of all these various combinations in terms of aesthetics and thinking through things. So, it would seem to me, you tell me if you disagree, but that part of what we're doing with listening to rap or anything else is hearing the way a person thinks.
Yes.
And I think with any musical style, you are going to hear all kinds of worldviews articulated.
Yep.
And it seems to me there's a big difference between listening to that and accepting it and embracing it. And there's part where you may say, this is good art.
Right.
I mean, the performance is good, and the lyrics may be good, but they may contain things that are not true, or they may contain things that are the opposite of a Christian worldview or perspective. But that doesn't make the experience of listening to those things always categorically problematic. I mean, I think that's how I read that there used to be this approach as Christians, unfortunately, that was anything that contains these elements we will simply set aside.
Right.
And I think that a perspective, and I think this is kind of what you're articulating with the grid, is being critical. And certainly there'd be things that we say, I'm just going to put this away.
Right.
I will not allow this to have any part with me. But it allows the Christian to be a lot more thoughtful in what he or she is taking in with all these things, everything from movies to, and rap is really no different from any of those others. But it is such a clear window into a particular perspective that in many ways it's really valuable. So we may be listening to a lot of things that we say, I completely disagree, but it's providing a very unique insight. And meanwhile has some, very amazing and unique and revolutionary musical qualities. Is that fair?
Yeah, indeed. I'll say what you said in just in my own words, because I think I agree 100%. You can look at art in two ways. I teach art as an element of culture. There's 8 pillars of culture that I teach, and one of them is art. Each pillar is a set of questions. And when it comes to art, the questions are twofold. What's worth reproducing and why? And then the second question is, how skillfully or uniquely can it be done?
Yeah.
And I think many times we pay attention to the second question, how skillful or how unique was that?
Right.
Without paying attention to why was what that artist reproduced, why was that worth reproducing? First of all, what was the subject? What did they reproduce? Was it their pain? Was it their joy? Was it their struggle? They reproduced something. Why did they reproduce it? Why was that worth reproducing? And I think it's for a culture to come together, and you could break it down to before you get to culture, just family coming together. What was the subject? What did they reproduce? Why did that artist feel that that was worth reproducing? Before we get to, or maybe after, we talk about how skillfully or uniquely was it done.
Right.
I can appreciate the skill or uniqueness of the art, but at some point I need to consider what was the subject, and do I agree with the artist's stance? Yeah. I don't have to agree with it to like it.
Right.
I can like it for its aesthetic. I can like it because I disagree with it.
Right.
He or she clearly articulated what I disagree with.
Yes.
And every time I hear it, it crystallizes what I believe because I believe the opposite. But it's a conversation. I think, art is a conversation. You go to an art gallery, you don't just look at the art. You talk about what does it mean? What does it say to you? This piece speaks to me. What kind of room would you put it in? I wouldn't put it in this. I would put it in because there's a conversation. And I think one of the travesties of rap is the strength and the weakness. The weakness is there's so much being said, you almost feel rude if you press pause because the artist is still talking. You want to hear it, you want to get it in, and you got more songs in your playlist to get to. But I think we should press pause often and think about, do I agree? How much do I agree? Why do I agree or do I disagree? We ought to have conversations. Now, I don't want you to, look crazy, be on the train talking back to your to your phone. But in your mind, at least, you should be talking back to your art.
Yeah, almost like reading a novel, where sometimes you stop and you're thinking, I got to pause and take this in.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then the other side, the strength, how that's a strength is, rap is like no other art form. In the sense that you've got someone stuffing so many words into a stanza where there's almost, it leaves nothing to imagination sometimes because you have to fill the space up with words. Yeah. So you don't have to guess what the artist means. He's telling you, he or she is telling you. So you have this great gift, like you said, an insight into someone's worldview.
Right.
It's a great gift to be talking to your child about, what does this song say about this person's worldview? Yeah. Even if the artist is telling a story of someone else and not themselves, whoever they just told a story about, what does it say about that person's worldview? We can look at that on a holistic scale and we can take it apart and be teaching, lessons. I think every song is a teachable moment. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's pause for this brief commercial. We're going to roll in a commercial then. About the opportunity to audit classes and maybe take your class.
How about that?
Yeah. So, all right. We're back now. So, Brady, if somebody signed up for your hip-hop elective that you teach here at Cairn, and I know that you teach other courses elsewhere, but we want them to come to Cairn and take it, what would he or she expect in the class that you offer here? Is it hip-hop and ethics? Is that the title?
No, here I teach.
Okay. What do you teach here?
Interestingly, hopefully by the time I teach it in the fall, it will have a new name. Right now it's just topics in sociology, hip-hop. And I think people just see hip-hop there and like, wait, what is this? Is it a dance class? Like hip-hop, what
will we be doing?
Right. So I would love the course to be called, hopefully by the fall, it will be called Hip-Hop in the Inner City. I think that kind of gives more of paints the picture of what we'll be talking about. Right. Hip-hop as the voice of the inner city. Hip-hop as the voice of a people who I believe, African Americans in this country largely lost their spokesman when King was assassinated. There's only 5 short years between the death of King and the birth of hip hop. And so, and you think about why, hip hop is 4 elements. It's rap, it's breakdance, it's graffiti, and the DJ. Those are the 4 elemental aspects of hip hop. Others have been added, but those are the 4 that begin.
So you say, so I don't want to take away from class, but hip hop culture would be defined by those 4 elements.
Those 4, not defined by, but described maybe, identified by. Okay. When those 4 elements came together, people said, okay, this is something. It's not just this. It's those 4 things. I think my point in saying that was, though, what was my point in saying that?
Dr. King, you were talking about the amount of space too.
Yes. So hip-hop was born in 1973. Here's my point. Those 4 elements come together. Most people thought, if you look at the early movies about hip-hop, it was about breakdancing. It was the most eye-catching element of the culture. Even though the DJ was the first element, you needed the DJ first. Then the rapper came and you had the breakdance. People thought breakdancing was going to be it because it was so eye-catching. It was so phenomenal what these people were doing. And yet, rap, one of the most early rap songs in terms of its notoriety was Sugar Hill Gang. And the lyrics are a hip-hop, a hip to the hip-hop, and you don't stop. Rapper to the bang-bang, boogies up, jump the boogie to the... So wait, what are you talking about? And even as they do get into saying real words, you're still like, wait, what are you talking about? You're just talking about the party. The song is 15 minutes long. And they thought that was short because hip hop was not a song. It was a party at first. How are you going to fit a party in a song? You made it 15 minutes long just to give the impression that it didn't stop because that's what parties did. They went all night long. But they're not talking about anything. And yet, out of those 4 elements, rapping, DJ, graffiti, breakdance, why did rap take the lead out of those 4 when breakdancing was clearly much more galvanizing? Well, you go back to 5 years before hip-hop began, minorities in this country lost their spokesman. So even if all you're saying is a hip-hop, hip to the hip-hop, and you don't stop, someone's thinking, but wait a minute, you got a microphone, and all these people don't have a voice. What do you really have to say? And so the first commercial rap song is Rapper's Delight, the one I was just quoting. But the next commercially successful rap song is a song on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, a song called The Message. Mm-hmm. And most people know lyrics from The Message because you've seen it in Happy Feet or you've seen it in some other kind of depiction. Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's not a dance song. It's not a happy song. Matter of fact, the rappers who recorded it was a group called Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. The main rapper's name is Melly Mel. The group is called Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Only Melly Mel, of those 5 rappers, he's the only rapper who appeared on the song from that group because most of them did not want to record it. The song was slow. It was contemplative. It was not a dance song. And hip hop was just a party. I said a hip hop. We don't want to record the song. It's not what hip hop is. So Melly Mel raps on it and another guy. They put the song on the album, and then the record label says, we want to release this song as a single. The group says, no, what are you talking about? This is not a party song. Mind you, at this time, the only rap song that had ever sold anything was Sugar Hill Gang, Rapper's Delight. Song about nothing but party. They said, you want to put this out as a single? The song is called The Message. You don't put a message on at a party. People are going to sit down and, start thinking about their life and get depressed. They're here to dance. Reluctantly, only one rapper from the group is on it. Reluctantly, they put it on the album. Reluctantly, they put it out. The song goes platinum. 1 million copies sold. Why? Because people are looking at this underdog saying, they've got a microphone. And they're not just saying a hip hop, hippie to the hip anymore. Someone is speaking their message. And so in the class, what I try to do is demonstrate, A, that hip hop is a culture, not a subculture. It's a culture. But then 2, what is the dynamic? What is the potential even of hip hop to not just be a culture, but to serve as a movement? You think about the civil rights movement, you think about the Black Power movement. I believe hip hop has the potential to be the next movement. And even to this day, I think it still has that potential, and it's being challenged. Things like the Black Lives Matter movement, I think challenges hip hop to be more than it's ever been, be what it always could have been, to be that next movement. Are we going to just continue partying and celebrating when so many of us are still struggling and not succeeding? Or are we going to actually take this and do what we could have done with it in the 70s and 80s? Tried to do with it in the late 80s and 90s, but got co-opted and corrupted by commercialism. So we talk about that in the class, and then we talk about the Christians interacting in the culture, things like cross movement and Lecrae, how Christians have tried to evangelize and be missional in the culture. So looking at it from a Christ-centered perspective, even eschatologically, Revelation says, John says, I looked and I saw people from every nation. And then he breaks it down further, every people, and he breaks it down further, every tribe, and then he breaks it down further, every tongue. He could just be saying the same thing a bunch of different ways, or he could be narrowing his scope into how distinct and yet still recognizable people are in the eternal state, recognizable by their cultures. And so even as an eschatological facet of the kingdom of God, we look at culture and talk about, we can't exclude hip hop from that either. So,
well, it's a great preview for the class, but they'll have to sign up to have the full experience. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, Brady. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure anybody who's listening has as well. I'm really excited you're teaching on this at Cairn, to have this conversation with you, for us to have the resource that we do in you and your knowledge on this. And I'm happy you made the time to talk with us.
Thanks for inviting me, man. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned after the podcast for Brady's take on recent events with Kanye West and his own unique spin on our own Cairn 10. Thanks for listening. So then we'll just jump right into Kanye. So, Brady, there was news from Kanye West recently, and this has been talked about a great deal. What's your take on these things? Another really broad question. I know.
Yeah. I think I join those who are encouraged by what they see. Of course, like many, I was skeptical. This is the guy who had an album called Yeezus. One of the songs, I think on that album, or another album where he says, I am a God. That's the chorus over and over, I am a God. And so very skeptical. There have been people in the past from different genres and even in rap who have claimed Christianity. And then months later, oh, no, I didn't mean that, or some new age take on Christianity.
Right.
So skeptical, but hopeful, because all of the things that I saw caused me to say, But that seems like what real Christians do. That seems like what real Christians experience. Even his testimony, he said he came into 2019, wanting to do a year of Sunday services. And I think I would have been concerned if he left 2019 the same way he entered 2019. But even in his own recounting of the year, he says, I came into 2019 wanting to do a year of Sunday services. Then he says around April of that year, I got delivered. So even he interjects in his own story, something happened. I started one way, and almost midway through 2019, I was doing a service a week all over the country, all over the world. But about midway through that year, I'm not the same. The guy who went into 2019 thinking, I can do this and I can do that for God, and God, God's lucky to have me on his team. Halfway through the year, he says, no, wait. I'm blessed if I get to join his team. If I get drafted onto his team, I'm the blessed one. So he had an experience, he had an encounter. There's a pastor that many people that I know have vouched for, saying this pastor is the real deal. They trust him. This pastor has vouched for Kanye very tentatively at first. The pastor would say, just pray. Things are happening. Pray. But behind the scenes was having Bible study with Kanye and his family every Tuesday. Even when Kanye moved out of state, would fly the pastor up every Tuesday to continue doing Bible study with him and his family. So not only have the Sunday services kept going, now we're in 2020, he's still doing them. He's never been the one to get on the mic and preach. He would testify, but not preach. He would bring other people in that he deemed more qualified and let them preach. But to be honest, one of the things that gave me the most encouragement was, his wife's show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. There's a segment where he appears, and he appears because he wants her to change her wardrobe for an event that they're going to. And she says to him, just because you're having a spiritual experience doesn't mean everyone else is on the same page with you. She had been prepping for months to get the right outfit. This is Kim Kardashian, so the right outfit for her is a very revealing outfit. And he says, I would like you to consider, not wearing that. It reflects, I don't like how it reflects on us and on me as your husband. She says, nah, I'm not having the same experience you are. You can't expect. And then she says, you built me up to be this sex symbol. Now you want me to not be that. He says, well, that was before. And I'm like fighting back tears as I think about it, because I'm like, that seems so genuinely Christian. He says, that was before. I didn't realize the impact it had on me as a husband and us as a family. And he just, he gets up and he walks out. He says, okay. And he gets up and he walks out. Now, someone could say, that was just for, for the TV. That was, whatever. But that's what Christians go through. Right. Jesus said, I came not to bring peace, but a sword. You follow me, there's going to be strife in your family for following me. So I say all that to say, my take on Kanye is I see a number of encouraging things that real Christians go through, things that baby Christians go through, misspeaking, saying things that he wishes he could take back because he realized, as a Christian, I probably shouldn't. And then a zeal, a genuine joy. All that to say, I'm with those who say this is encouraging, and I hope the best. I hope the best. That's all I can really say. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure these conversations will continue.
Yeah.
As things continue to unfold, but. Well, I asked you to finalize our time with, I normally, when we interview alumni, and I'm glad you teach at Cairn. I know you didn't attend Cairn, but we ask them the same 10 questions. We call them the Cairn 10, and it's kind of about their Cairn experience. So I've adapted this a little bit here. And to be honest with you, a lot of this is just my own curiosity. What would you say on these things? And so I have 10 questions here. We have, I don't know, maybe we'll adjust it because you're here with something a little more fitting. But normally we have a little clock that runs in the audio in the background. You can't hear it now when we're recording. But so these are all about various rap songs. So typically we run through them quickly. So you're allowed to do just a one-word answer. But if you feel compelled to give an explanation, I'm going to give you a lot of leeway with this because this is a whole new, this is groundbreaking.
Thank you for the grace.
Brady, what we're doing. All right, here we go. What's the first rap song you recall personally ever hearing?
First rap song was Roxanne, Roxanne by UTFO. And I only heard the chorus. This is back in like maybe 1982, 83, something like that. Roxanne, Roxanne, I want to be your man. I didn't even hear them rap. What I remember is the disc jock came on as the song the song was going off. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Good thing we got the Deer Park.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
What I remember is the disc jock came on as the song was going off. And I heard them in the background, Roxanne, Roxanne, I want to be your man. And the disc jock came on and said, if I keep hearing Roxanne so much, I think my ears are going to need a crutch. Corny by today's standards, but as a child, I was 6 years old, I guess.
Yeah.
When I heard that, it stood out to me because I'm like, wait, what he said just rhymed. And people don't talk rhythmically and rhyme like that.
Right.
That was unique. And I went searching to find more of what that disc jock just did. People talking rhythmically and rhyme. And I began to find it more. Yeah.
I think you answered this already maybe, but here again, what would you consider to be maybe generally argued to be the first rap song ever produced?
I'm glad you still asked because actually I didn't.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
I didn't answer it.
I thought it was the Grandmaster
because
Flash.
most people think it is not Grandmaster Flash. That would be the second the second successful rap song recorded. The first commercially successful rap song was Sugar Hill Gang, Rapper's Delight. But same year, a few months before that, a group by the name of the Fatback Band. Fatback Band.
Okay.
Had a song called King Tim III. And it was about the leader of the band, Tim Washington, and he raps the entire song. And so that came before Rapper's Delight, but it was not popular. Rapper's Delight is the first commercially successful recorded rap song.
Okay. Yeah. These must be so hard for you. Greatest of all time rap song. And I have no criteria for that. I'm just going to throw that out and see what you do.
Yeah, that answer changes from day to day, maybe from hour to hour with each rap enthusiast. So right now, at this day and time, the greatest rap song. And if you're a rap fan, you probably would say, "What? There's so many more songs you could have chose." Of course. Right now, for me, will be a song called Wave Files by the artist Lupe Fiasco. Very conceptual. I like conceptual art. He tells a story about a group of slaves who jumped overboard during the transatlantic slave trade on their way from Africa to the West. Jumped overboard, but didn't die. They sink to the bottom of the ocean. The ocean gives them, basically lets them live on the seafloor. And rather than go back to Africa, they spend their lives in the ocean shipwrecking slave ships. And he narrates the story. And the thing that's beautiful about the song is he holds nature accountable. He talks to the forest and holds the forest accountable for lending its trees to be wood for slave ships. He talks to the stars and holds them accountable for helping slavers navigate their way back to the West. And he goes through the song holding all of creation accountable for being complicit in the slave trade.
That is conceptual.
It is a great song. It's one of, to me, it's got to be one of the best. Yeah.
Good. Well, we'll watch well, we don't have enough people listening to this to make this happen, but I'd love to see the the downloads fly up on that. But, well, that's great. All right. Going to the other end of the spectrum, who gets the award for cheesiest rap artist or group?
Yeah, please don't be mad at me. I mentioned her before. I think Cardi B to me. No. I'll save her for another answer.
Okay.
I'll say cheesiest because she's not really cheesy. She's something else. Cheeziest would probably be Vanilla Ice, a tie between Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer.
I was thinking MC Hammer.
Yeah,
I wondered if you would say that.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Least known artist you think people should know, least known, pre-2000.
Pre-2000. Least known pre-2000. Wow.
Well, and then I got post-2000, so we'll roll these
Okay.
together. So if there's one or two that you think,
So yeah,
people should know but don't.
Pre-2000, I would probably have to say, and this is just because of this artist's impact on me. I don't know if you should know him. I just love his work. There's an artist named Pep Love from a group on the West Coast called the Hieroglyphics. And I learned alliteration, cadence, all kinds of things from him. Truly, people who listen to me say, you're more of a poet than a rapper. And I get it from people like that. It's poetry in motion, poetry in music. Yeah.
Great. How about post sort of 2000 to the present? Or is that the same answer?
No, different answer.
Okay.
2000 to present, I would probably say actually an artist from Philadelphia is a Christian rapper by the name of Eshawn Burgundy. Yeah, if you don't know Eshawn Burgundy, he is probably the best of all worlds in terms of just what a rap artist can and should be. Yeah.
How about a very contemporary artist that you think people should keep an eye on?
So there's a guy I heard very recently, Navel Heiss. Navel Heiss, I think is his name. I saw him on Sway in the Morning, the Wake Up Show. Is it the Wake Up Show anymore? It's Sway in the Morning, Sway's Universe on Shade 45. Did a freestyle on there. Very young, very energetic, passionate guy who I believe might be a Christian. There's some lyrics in the freestyle that he did was like, wait, you're talking about your faith an awful lot there. And it seemed to be pointed in the Christian direction. Talked about his wife a lot. But very talented guy. I think I would keep an eye on Navel Heiss if you could find him. Yeah.
How about the most overrated artist and why?
Now, here's where you'll all probably be mad at me. I'm going to say the most overrated rap artist is Kendrick Lamar. Yeah.
We'll put some sound effects in right there. when you say that.
Yeah, some ooh. He's very, very talented. I cannot take that away from him. But I like lyricists. And to me, he's just not a pure lyricist. He's an artist, for sure, but overrated to me as a lyricist. Not a pure rhymer.
Well, these are your Cairn 10 here, Brady.
okay.
So you get the right to do it. What's your favorite period of... So I had the history of hip-hop, but I want to adapt this now based on our conversation. Favorite period in the history of rap, and why?
Well, you probably don't need to adjust it because people talk about something called the golden age of rap.
Okay.
And then they also simultaneously they say the golden age of hip hop.
Okay.
So some people kind of just for the sake of colloquially we know when you say hip hop you mean rap. So you'll be okay. Golden age of rap, golden age of hip hop. I would agree. There's a golden age, and I think it goes from about 85 to 95, 1985 to 95. This is where artists were really challenging one another. They kind of took the ethic of battle rap, which was something that happened at parties, and they brought that to recorded rap. And so on rap records, you have people sort of battling with no opponent in sight, but they still have to be lyrically sharp enough to win whoever might step into that space. Right. And so just the talent level is rising. This is the era of people like Rakim, who was very recently noted as #1 in the list of the top 50 influential rappers of all time. So Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, you had people like Slick Rick, APMD, NWA was in there. It's just a great period for the art in its purest, most uncommercialized, sort of, uncontaminated form. Yeah.
All right, last one. What is your, end on a negative note, but what is your least favorite period in the history of hip-hop and why?
My least favorite probably would be right after the golden age, not necessarily 95. There's a period from 95 to 2000 where hip-hop got commercial, I didn't like that, but I think my least favorite would be the period right after that, 2000. It's about 2010, where hip hop moved to the South and lost some of the ethic, I think. Read my book, The Death of Hip Hop, Marriage and Morals, and I'll talk about hip hop had a North and South struggle, which was really a recapitulation of the North and South debate between Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois 100 years ago, when they're talking about how to advance African Americans in this country, after Civil War. That Reconstruction debate about what kind of education is best for African Americans happened 100 years later in hip hop in early 2000s. Do we need to be sort of higher education, intellectual, conscious, or is it just, hey, whatever is going to earn money, do that? And I think the Southern ethic was the same as Booker T. Do what's going to make money. Forget educating the mind. That was a Northern mindset that said educate the mind. And that period of rap, I kind of despise. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thanks for coming by again,
Yes,
Brady.
sir.
And thank you, alumni, for listening, for a chance to win a free copy of one of Brady's books, which is what we're going to do now, one of Brady's books. Drop us a comment where you see the podcast, and we'll enter you into a drawing to win. There's so much more content that my guest could share and that I'd be interested in hearing today, but I did want to throw this out to anybody listening to this, that if you have a question or subject that you think merits more conversation around the subject of hip-hop or rap music or any of the things you've heard here today, please drop that in the comments, and we may have the opportunity to have Brady come back, address some of those, and have you be a little bit more in control of the microphones than maybe you were today. So we hope to have you comment there, enter you into the drawing, and thanks for listening.
Good stuff, man.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Yeah.